Hi guys, this is Charlie with Boxing Focus, and a follow-up to Sergei Kovalev completely dominating Bernard Hopkins in a fight that I actually thought Bernard Hopkins would win. Now, the excuse that Bernard gave at the end of the fight was that Kovalev kept him at range, which meant that he was unable to do what he needed to do, which doesn't make that much sense to me. Kovalev, if you look at the box rec, which I know is not necessarily a massive source, a massively credible source for these things, but box rec lists Kovalev's reach at 72.5 inches, and he's 6 foot tall. Bernard Hopkins, it has him at 6'1" with a reach of 75 inches, which equates, to roughly an inch or so on either arm. So I don't think range really was the problem, because Bernard should have been able to work at range. He should have had the edge in the range. I think the issue was simpler than that. And it's fairly obvious. Basically, at 49 years of age, time has caught up with Father Hopkins, and whilst he could perhaps get away with it against slightly lesser fighters, against your Shumanovs of the world, against Shumanov, Marat, Tavoris Cloud, against a very strong fighter with sound fundamentals and a bit of patience and not particularly, and someone who's strong mentally. He simply just didn't have the spring, the speed, the energy necessary in order to make it a competitive fight. If you look back to his fight with Pavlik, and I'm not in any way comparing Kelly Pavlik to Sergei Kovalev, but it's just the type of spring and energy that Bernard had against Pavlik. Remember, in the build-up to that fight, Hopkins said along the lines, of what's Pavlik going to do when he realises he's not in against an old man? Everyone's told him that I'm old. Now, if you follow the build-up for the Kovalev fight, there was none of that, because now Hopkins actually is old. Against Pavlik, he fought like a younger fighter. He was active. He threw a lot of shots. He had sharp reactions. All of these things that were basically missing against Kovalev. There was only one time where he actually slipped or rolled a shot and came back with a right hook. And that's one of Hopkins' money punches. He ducks down underneath the shot and cuts and snaps back up with a sharp hook, and he only did it once in the entire fight. He was throwing around about 10 punches around generously. He didn't have it in him anymore to pull the trigger, especially against a dangerous opponent that he knew could hurt him, which I thought would be the case, but I thought Hopkins would. I thought he did frustrate Kovalev. He made him miss quite a lot, which was what he needed to do. But he also needed to come back with his own offense, and he didn't have the athleticism necessary, the athleticism that comes with youth or relative youth, in order to launch an attack from moderate range. He could only really fire at Kovalev when Kovalev was in range of his own shots, and Hopkins he just didn't have the reactions to win the exchanges. Every time they exchanged, Kovalev got the better of it. The question is that because Hopkins was old, or because Kovalev was the better fighter? You could argue both cases. I would say that the Hopkins that fought Pavlik would probably have won that fight, because he would have had even better reactions, and he would have been a lot sharper in terms of getting his own shots off. And Hopkins just couldn't pull the trigger in this fight. And you saw him; he just couldn't pull the trigger. He was leaning back, and he only had it in him to avoid most of what Kovalev was throwing. Saying that, the 12th round, he wasn't doing much avoiding in that 12th round. He showed a phenomenal chin. I believe that Kovalev hurt both of his hands in that round as he threw the kitchen sink in a late attempt to get Hopkins out of there. And it was very brave of Bernard to stick it out. It was the most exciting point of the fight, but unfortunately Hopkins' only claim was to have never been knocked out in his career. In terms of what he took away from that fight. But it is what it is. He did he put in a brave effort, but he just doesn't have it in him anymore. And I wouldn't expect we'll see Bernard Hopkins in a ring again. At 49, finally, age has caught up with Bernard Hopkins. So this is Charlie with Boxing Focus. Let me know what you thought of the fight. It was a good. It was what I expected, which was cagey. If you take out the fact that I expected Hopkins to steal rounds by landing 3 or 4 eye-catching shots, and he never did. Even the rounds, there was possibly one round you could have given to Hopkins where he landed a couple of shots, and that was it. No offence equals no points. Kovalev didn't have to do anything in the rounds in which he was missing because he was the only one working. That made it a simple fight for Kovalev. Hopkins talks about brilliant game plans and all this kind of stuff, but if only one guy's throwing punches, it doesn't need to be a brilliant game plan. He just jab to the body, jab up the top, every now and again throwing the right hand. You've won the round. You've not done anything. And talk about Kovalev having never gone 12 rounds before. Well, I don't think we can take much away in terms of Kovalev's fitness from this fight, because again that wasn't tested. He was throwing 30 or so unchallenged punches for 11 rounds. Is not going to test an elite fighter's fitness remotely. Part of stamina and fitness in a boxing match is also absorbing punishment and coming through that as well, and obviously Kovalev never really had to do that. Like I say, I don't think we learned that much about Kovalev other than that he is a heavy-handed guy. We knew that. He's got sound fundamentals, good technique. We knew that. One last thing. I didn't pay attention to any of the pre-fight build-up for this. I was simply too busy. But when I turned the coverage on, the first thing I saw was an interview with Hopkins, and he compared. So saying that I won't compare Kovalev to Pavlik, Hopkins did compare Kovalev to Pavlik, and he said one, that he was going to beat Kovalev better than he beat Pavlik, which was an outrageous thing to say because he absolutely dismantled Pavlik. Second was that Kovalev was a Frankenstein like Pavlik, and he was just flat-footed, heavy-footed, just kind of plodding forward. And I don't know what fights he was watching. Nothing that I've seen of Kovalev made me think that. Actually, I always thought he had pretty good balance and was fairly light on his feet. Not necessarily amazing footwork, but certainly spring back and forwards quite effectively. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh dear, I've uploaded a prediction that is a little bit in danger. But there you go. Not all of us have that much time to prepare for these things. So it's a good fight. I certainly didn't bet any money on it, so I haven't lost anything other than a little bit of credibility. But Hopkins, old man, Kovalev. Hopkins passed the torch to him in this one, and I'm hoping we'll see Kovalev versus Stevenson. That'll be a cracker. So this is Charlie with Boxing Focus. Thanks for watching.